Let's talk about team decision making, right? Sometimes this can be challenging to come to a common and joint decision. If we look at it from a broader point of view, there's basically two ways to come to an agreement in a team. Either it is to maximize approval, so to ask who's in favor of certain options and then trying to maximize those favoring a certain proposal, or working with resistance and asking the opposite question. So, how is your resistance against certain options we have created in a team? Let's take a look at a specific example to clarify what we mean by using resistance as a tool in team decision making. The challenge I sometimes hear and also face myself is that when we develop a lot of ideas in a brainstorming, this can feel really enjoyable. There's a good flow, people participate and contribute. But then what sometimes happens is that we kind of develop parental feelings towards certain options and we favor them a lot. We favor them passionately, or we become advocates who really prefer one option over the other and express that in a very passionate way. If this is the case, then maximizing approval is not a good decision-making technique, because this will increase the passionate advocates in the team for certain options. What can we do instead? So let's imagine in your team you have created 3 prototypes, 3 options, and prototype can be replaced by pretty much any team decision-making issue. So for example, which strategic venue should we focus on? Or where should we go for our team offsite? Or what should we do with problem XYZ? So you can replace prototype with any other decision-making issue you are facilitating in your team. We have 3 options here, A, B, C, just for the ease of explaining it. And then what you do, instead of asking who's in favor of option A, please raise your hand, and then counting the hands, you ask, what is your resistance level against these options? And everybody, let's imagine you have a small team here, 3 people. Each one of them has a high, passionate preference for one of these prototypes. Maybe he or she invented it or came up with it. And you ask each one of them, what's your resistance level against option A, B, C? Make them vote at the same time, so they don't try to push the result in a certain way, but really give their vote at the same point of time. So 0 means I have no resistance at all against prototype A. 10 means I have maximum resistance against that prototype. Basically, this is a veto. This is the total or the full resistance. So let's imagine 1, 2, 3. They give their vote, and maybe it looks like that. And like that. What we can see here is that we have, this is a clear result, right? After they voted, you calculate, you add them up, and you see where is the lowest sum of resistance levels, which would be prototype A. Sum is minimum here, it's a bit higher here, and it's maximum here. So what we can see is that prototype C, even though there might be one person in the team, maybe over here, that really favors the prototype, the other 2 are totally against it. So there would be some trouble with implementing it or going forward, right? And with prototype A, that would be the most pragmatic result, so to say, to move forward. And sometimes it can be really helpful just to see the pattern of the resistance here, because usually we only ask, okay, who favors what options, and then try to find majorities in the team. Let's dig deeper on that point. What is the difference between asking for approval, trying to maximize approval, or working with resistance, or having a clear view on the resistance levels on the team? So this comes from a book from Bernd Österreich. and he's very generous with his visualizations. We are allowed to show them if we mention him, and he wrote a great book on peer leadership, collegial leadership in German, kollegiale Führung. It's a great read also on decision-making, tactics and strategies. So what we see here is we have different options. You see them numbered from option 1 to number 7, so 7 different options. And ist is the status quo, so the current situation. We then have them ordered here with regards to their acceptance level. So what is acceptance? Acceptance is green plus gray. Green stands for approval, and gray means I'm indifferent. I don't care, or I don't have any skin in the game. Indifference, or being neutral. Let's put it like that. Red, of course, is resistance. So now it's a different case. We have more options. And what would happen if you only would care about approval levels? So we would ask, who's in favor of option 1? Okay, please raise your hand, and then we count the hands, right? Which option would win? Actually, it would be option number 2 over here, right? Because our approval level is the highest. If we don't ask for indifference or even resistance, we would wonder why implementation is so difficult. And this is only clear to us when we ask for the resistance levels, because as we can see here, it's, I mean, a very extreme example, but to clarify it, I think it's great because option number 2 has the highest level of approval and at the very same time, the highest level of resistance. Meaning, I mean, sometimes we need to take decisions where only a few or the so-called majority are in favor of a certain option, but then, of course, we need to deal and facilitate the resistance, or we might be surprised. But in that case, we see, okay, the resistance level is really high here, and it's smallest for an option number 1, which is not bad in approval levels and really high in acceptance, right? In total acceptance. And we have very high level of resistance here. Second highest level of approval. And then we also have option number 4 we can take a closer look at, which has a pretty good approval level, the third best, like option number 1, but a little higher in resistance. So if we're looking for a pragmatic way forward, if the discussions have been going like that, and we just want to find a solution that is working good enough for most of the people, which option should we favor? What would you say? Yeah, I think option number 1, where the acceptance level is biggest. We don't have very many people that are very enthusiastic about the decision that's been taken, but we have a strong, solid foundation for implementation because there's only little resistance in the team. I hope this makes sense to you. It's also very helpful if you facilitate online, because asking for approval in an online setup, counting hands, sometimes it's not very informative, right? You kind of miss hands, and if you, for example, do that anonymously via a polling, you can really get better information on where is our pragmatic way forward.